Alright guys, you're welcome to this exciting episode of Top Corner Worldwide. Nico Wizzy is my name as usual. We're here to talk about football in Europe, more especially with the transfers and also the English Premier League. And of course, we start with the match day 2 of the English Premier League, which started on Friday. Yes, on Friday we had matches. Yes, of course, just one particular game, the West London derby between Chelsea and West Ham United at the London Stadium. It ended 5-1 in favor of the Blues. Quite an exciting performance from Chelsea this time. Yes, of course, Chelsea made a very short change, an immediate change just before the game. Of course, Cole Palmer got injured. The coach, Enzo Maresca, could not risk him into that very game. And then Esteban Willian had to make his Premier League debut. Yes, he had to make his Premier League debut. And then he assisted the goal scored by Enzo Fernandez, becoming one of the youngest players to assist a Premier League goal for Chelsea. And of course, we had Joao Pedro, Pedro Neto, Enzo Fernandez, Moses Caicedo, and Trevor Chalobah. More especially with Moses Caicedo, it was his 100th appearance in all competition for Chelsea, and he was able to score on that very day. And of course, he actually scored. Lucas Paqueta, his goal was actually the opener for West Ham United, but then West Ham United almost scored immediately with Nicholas Philcroft, but then it was ruled out for offside. Yes, and then the game ended 5-1, just like I stated earlier. And then we moved straight to matches that were played on Saturday. Yes, on Saturday the matches in the English Premier League continued with a lot of fanfare as regards to the Premier League. Manchester City got a shocking disgrace, of course, a little shocking game against Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham Hotspur under Thomas Frank has been quite fantastic from their last game against Burnley and now till the game against Manchester City. They've gotten 5 goals in 2 straight games. Yes, 2 goals against Manchester City. Pep Guardiola's Manchester City, quite a very fascinating encounter for Tottenham, of course, making Thomas Frank the 3rd manager to beat a Pep Guardiola side with 2 different teams. He did that with Brentford, and now he has done that with Tottenham. Did that with Brentford back in 2023, and now with Tottenham Hotspur. And of course, Brennan Johnson and Joao Paulinho were both on target for Spurs. And of course, we had AFC Bournemouth was at home to beat Wolverhampton Wanderers by 1-0 in a game which saw Marcus Tivania scoring the opener for Wolves for AFC Bournemouth. At the end of the day, 1 goal it ended for against Wolves. Totti Gomez was sent off. Yes, Wolves ended that game with just 10 men. And then of course we had Brentford 1-0 against Aston Villa. Dango Katara scoring on his Premier League debut for Brentford. Of course, Mikael Damsgaard, his goal was cancelled because there was a foul in the build-up to that game. It ended 1-0 in favor of the Bees. And of course, remember that the Bees are still having Yohane Wissa in their payroll because they feel they have not signed his replacement. And of course, Dango Katara was actually a replacement for Brian Mbeumo, who left for Manchester United. But of course, we have Burnley. They played against Sunderland in a 2-0 victory for the Clarets. Yes, at the Turf Moor, the Clarets were quite fantastic again this time after they lost their first game against Tottenham last weekend. But then this time they tried to bounce back. Josh Cullen and Jayden Anthony both on target for the Clarets against Sunderland that won their game against West Ham the last time 3-0. But of course, this time Sunderland weren't they weren't really doing good this time, but they lost against Burnley. Josh Cullen with 2 goal contributions in that very game. And then we had Arsenal. We are quite Arsenal were quite fantastic. Yes, of course, Mikel Arteta trying to make a statement with what he did against Leeds United. After picking up a narrow victory against Manchester United last weekend, Arsenal continued in their opening, and of course, getting back to winning ways and winning that game. Continued in their very good form beginning of the season with what they did against Manchester United. Now they win against Leeds United 5-0. It ended in that very game. Jurgen Timber with 2 goal contributions. He actually scored and also he scored twice and then assisted the goal scored by Saka. 3 goal contribution for the Dutch defender. And of course, this is the first time in his career that he has scored 2 goals in a single game. And of course, Victor Gyökeres scored his first goal of the game as in the 48th minute, just after the halftime resumed, after the second half resumed. And of course, Riccardo Calafiori, the Italian, he scored against Manchester United last time, and then he assisted that goal by Gyökeres as we speak. And at the end of the day, it was a fantastic game for Arsenal. Victor Gyökeres with the double, the last goal he scored from the spot after, after Max Dorman made his Premier League debut and also made an impact by getting that penalty. He was fouled inside the 18-yard box, and then he actually made sure that he fell on the ground, and then the penalty was handed over to Arsenal for Victor Gyökeres to convert the second goal of the game for the Gunners. And of course, Max Dorman, on the other hand, became the second youngest player to make the second youngest debutant in Premier League history after Ethan Nwaneri sometime in September 2022, 18th of September 2022, when he made his Premier League debut against Brentford. At that time, he was 15 years, 181 days. And now we have Max Dorman, who made his Premier League debut at the age of 15 years, 235 days. That's making it the second youngest debutant in Premier League history. And now we have Arsenal with a 5-0 victory against Leeds United. And of course, we had other games played, more especially with the Premier League as it resumed again on Sunday. Yes, on Sunday it was the game between Crystal Palace. They played as a 1-1 draw against Nottingham Forest. Yes, it ended 1-1 this time between the two sides, with Ismail Assar opening the scoring after scoring in the Community Shield. This time he scores again for the Eagles just after they lost the Berechese to Arsenal. Berechese just left, and of course he was unveiled by Arsenal just before their game against Leeds United. And of course we had Callum Hudson-Odoi scoring for Nottingham Forest just after his time at Chelsea. Has been doing so great with Nottingham Forest, equalizing that goal for Forest. Yes, of course, at the end of the day, Nottingham Forest still have Nuno Espirito Santo to take charge of duties despite issues he's having with the club's leadership, Evangelos Marinakis. But then that's a story for another day. But then we have Everton. They defeated Brighton by 2-0 at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. Everton played their first home Premier League game against Brighton. It ended 2-0 in favor of the Toffees. And of course, we're talking about the Everton game. We have Iliman Ndiaye and James Garner, the former Manchester United left back. He scored his first goal his third goal for Everton, but his first since 2023, since 7th of October 2023, was quite on target for Everton as they won against Brighton. And of course, we had Fulham playing at a 1-1 draw against Manchester United. Yes, 1-1 draw. This time, Rodrigo Muniz scored an own goal, but then Bruno Fernandes could have given Manchester United the opener in the 38th minute, but he missed for the first time in a long period of time. Bruno Fernandes missed from the spot, and then Emile Smith-Rowe, the former Arsenal attacking midfielder, also scored for Fulham. It ended 1-1. Rodrigo Muniz with the own goal, and it ended 1-1. Rodrigo Muniz said to be offered a new contract at Fulham. And of course, let's talk about the transfers this time. When you look at the situation of the transfers, a lot is actually happening in the transfer window. And of course, we have Victor Boniface and his situation with AC Milan. Quite a very terrible situation for Victor Boniface. He reached an agreement with there was an agreement between Bayer Leverkusen and AC Milan on a loan deal for Victor Boniface. Loan deal which will include 5 million euros loan fee and 24 million euros purchase option in case he joins AC Milan permanently. But then, during medical tests, AC Milan discovered that he has an injury in his knee, which made it impossible. Of course, he has so many scars in his knee, and they actually said, according to the medicals, he still has a little injury in his knee as well. And so it actually made it impossible for AC Milan to sign him permanently. He will now fly back to Germany to continue playing for Bayer Leverkusen. But meanwhile, Victor Boniface is no longer willing to play under Erik ten Hag, because in a couple of games recently he has been coming up on the bench and is not really happy with the situation on ground. But of course, still talking about the transfers, we have so many other transfer stories to talk about. And of course, we had Jonathan Rowe. He has finally left Olympique Marseille after an altercation with his teammates, talking about his ex-teammate at Olympique Marseille, talking about Andre Raboy. Yes, they had an altercation after the game against Rennes in their first game, which they lost. Yes, they actually lost in their first game, but then they went on to win this weekend. They went on to win this weekend, when they played, they defeated. They defeated Paris FC by 5 goals to 2. And then Jonathan Rowe has been sold to Bologna on a 4-year. He has signed for 19.5 million euros. That's the transfer fee, then plus 10% sell-on clause. Yes, there is also a 10% sell-on clause in that very deal, which means in the future, if Bologna gets to sell him in the future, 10% of the profit they make from the sale, they will have to give it back to Olympique Marseille. And of course, he has signed a 4-year contract with the Italian side, just over a year after he joined Olympique Marseille from after he joined Olympique Marseille from Norwich City. Now he has left the club again. Quite a very surprising scenario for this English international. But of course, wait to see what happens as he enters his chapter, begins a new chapter with Bologna. We have Renato Sanchez continues his journeyman career in football after joining Panathinaikos of Greece on loan from PSG. And of course, loan deal will expire in June 2026. And of course, finally, just before I sign off, we have Manchester City have not given up on signing. Of course, Tottenham Hotspur, not Manchester City this time. But Tottenham Hotspur have not given up on the signing of Savinho. Yes, they want to sign Savinho. Remember, Tottenham tried to sign Eberechieze. It did not work out. But then they have been looking for somebody, an attacker to sign, and then Savinho comes to mind. But then Manchester City have been blocking the ways. They have been blocking the transfer. But then Manchester City confirmed they cannot sell. If they cannot sell the player, if not for any transfer fee more than 80 million euros, they can only sell for 80 million euros. And of course, Tottenham have already submitted a bid of 70 million euros, which Manchester City are rejecting at the moment. But we'll wait to see what transpires. Negotiations continues. Both clubs remain in negotiations, and then we get to see what happens. And of course, this is the size of our package on this wonderful episode of Top Corner Worldwide. Nico Wizzy is my name. Bye for now, and see you next time.